Hey, it's Jamie again. A few months back I took a look at Mega Man Battle Network WS for the Bandai WonderSwan. It's a really fun little platformer based on the NT Warrior anime series, and I really enjoyed my time with it. I felt like it took a lot of what made classic Mega Man fun and combined it with elements of the Battle Network RPGs, and of course anime story beats, to make it arguably one of the most underrated games in the entire Mega Man series. Since then, the Mega Man Battle Network Legacy Collection has been announced, and I received an actual English translated BNWS cartridge from a viewer. Notably, like in all of the Mega Man Legacy collections, none of the spin-off games are going to be included in this newest release. So, no BNWS, no Battle Chip Challenge, no emulation of those pet toys that my husband swears were the coolest damn thing back in the day, and yes, I call it a pet, not a PET, sue me. And of course, no Mega Man Network transmission for the GameCube. I got a few asks about this after the BNWS vid because yeah, this is also a Battle Network platformer that tries to combine elements of the classic games with the elements from the Battle Network RPGs, and it actually managed to get a worldwide release, look at that. I still find it weird that it's on the GameCube. BNNT here is shorter and less complex than most of the Game Boy Advance games. The GameCube was modern and pretty powerful at the time, and yet a proper RPG was apparently too much. Well, regardless, whether it's an RPG or a platformer or a weird mix of both, what matters most here is that the game itself is fun. And when I first played this one years back, I came away from it after only a couple of hours, absolutely despising it. Anyways, let's talk about the GameCube. 2003 was a great year for the GameCube. Mario Kart Double Dash, Skies of Arcadia Legends, Wind Waker, hell, even Piglet's Big Game. Hordes of great games, fantastic new games. Even if the system wasn't selling gangbusters, there was a lot of quality here. Gotta hand it to Nintendo. Not everyone could pull this off with a lunchbox with a bunch of wires shoved into it. Around the same time, Capcom was pumping out a ton of Mega Man games. And the quality varied greatly. Over on the PS2 that same year, they released Mega Man.exe 7, and I've done a whole video on my issues with that one. Also that year, the classic Mega Man series got Mega Man Base in the Game Boy Advance. That's another travesty I've talked about in the past. But consistently solid during this time was Mega Man Battle Network. Set in a world where the 90s version of the internet came to life, these games replaced Robot Master weapons with battle chips, which you could shuffle through and draw a hand of every turn, kind of like a card game. As for combat itself, it was done in this grid system, effortlessly combining fast-paced action, card game strategy, and a storytelling world building of a standard RPG. And it was huge. There's an anime series, a manga, new games on a yearly basis for a while. 2003 not only saw a network transmission on the GameCube, but also both the release of Battle Network 3 in North America and Europe, along with Battle Network 4 in Japan. Not to mention, but the original release of Battle Network 3 was so popular that saw an updated release in Japan, Battle Network 3 Black, in March 2003. That's kind of how we ended up with two versions of it worldwide. Since Capcom clearly had their hands full with the main games, development of network transmission was handed off to Eureka, a developer best known for the Street Fighter EX games. And they also did the 3D Classics games from the 3DS. Remember those? Now that's a sub-series I never hear talked about. Anyways, network transmission here was their first and only time trying to make a Mega Man game. The concept here is honestly rather similar to BNWS, except instead of being based on the NT Warrior anime series, which does have a few name and plot changes to the games, it's canon to the game series taking place between Battle Networks 1 and 2. Spoiler alert for this 18-year-old game, the main villain this time is Zero. Yeah, a computerized version of Mega Man.exe, except fiddly enough, he's a computer virus here. It kind of plays in that whole Zero virus thing from the X series. Well, he's the villain until he isn't. Everything before and after is just an excuse to fight Robot Mat corrupted Navis, until you get to the final boss, which is the fucking life virus from Battle Network 1 and BNWS again. There's also some extra shenanigans such as an optional Proto Man fight and everyone's favorite Battle Network post-game super boss, Base. That said, I didn't bother with these for reasons we'll get into. So structurally, there's no real overworld. Lan Hikari here spends the whole game in his room and will occasionally walk around and play with stuff. You get around to stages via a world map that you access through your main pet menu, and along the way you interact with Lan's friends and their navis through the power of the internet. And boring as it is that there's no actual overworld, I think it's pretty cool how every time you beat a boss, a little action figure of them appears in Lan's room. That's not to mention these really nicely animated pre-rendered cutscenes. The entire game is kind of the cel-shaded art style. This was done to resemble the anime, but in stages it just comes off as looking a little cheap and plasticky. There's a lot of color and all, but yeah, I'm not huge on it. But these cutscenes kind of make up for it. Except, this is where the first problem comes in. This game has voice acting, and it's only in Japanese. I mean, yeah, sure, there's subtitles here, and I'm glad we got this over, say, something of Mega Man 8 tier. You can understand what's going on. The story is really nothing special though. And despite that, the devs felt the need to put little voice clips during main gameplay. And while Mega Man isn't nearly as talkative as your average Bubsy, it's a little grating, especially when you die. Just, that blood-curdling scream. That's gonna haunt my nightmares. In theory, network transmission shouldn't be too long. I guess you could say the game has 16 or 17 stages, though some of the stages connect to these global internet areas, which aren't really global or even that big, but do have a few NPCs and shops scattered around as you use them to go between certain stages. Real issues become apparent when we get into how the game is balanced. For context here, I want to first very quickly look at one of my favorite NES games, Mega Man 5. This is a standard classic Mega Man experience. 8 stages followed by 2 fortresses. Along with running, jumping, and shooting, Mega Man has a charge shot and can slide under enemies, along with getting extra mobility through abilities such as the Super Hero or Rush Jet or the weirdly changed Rush Coil. In Mega Man 5, and this is what's important here, if you shoot your average enemy, it will probably be gone in a few hits, if not in one hit. Or if it does take multiple hits, you might be able to blast it to pieces with a charge shot. These are just basic enemies. They're meant to be dispatched easily. But clearly the network transmission devs didn't get the memo. With 0 upgrades, it can take anywhere from 10 to 20 shots just to destroy a basic moot. Oh yeah, there's an upgrade system. You'll find HP memories and mem ups that increase your health and special gauge respectively, and we'll get to that, along with the creatively named power-ups. These let you upgrade one of 3 stats corresponding to your shot strength, how many shots you can fire in succession, and your charge ability. I love this in concept. Upgradable abilities, fantastic. It's part of why I like most of the armors in the Mega Man X series. I just have a lot of issues with how it's executed here. Let's look at the charge upgrades for example. Upgrade your charge once and yeah, you can charge your buster, but it pretty much takes forever. To actually become usable, you'll have to upgrade your charge a few more times, and for it to do any decent damage, you need to upgrade your attack stat as well. Now let's say you fully max out all your stats here. That's a lot of searching. There's only a limited number of power-ups. And for all your trouble, does megaman.exe here become an overpowered god? Hell no. A fully upgrade, you feel just as powerful as your average classic Mega Man. And even then, with how hard some of these bosses hit, you still end up feeling a bit more fragile than most other Mega Man titles. What's supposed to make up for this and replace your traditional Mega Man special weapon system is the battle chip system. Wait a bit in real time for your custom gauge to fill up, press the left and right bumpers, and bring up this menu. You collect chips across the game, some scattered through stages, some dropped by enemies, some sold in shops, and some powerful ones given by bosses. These are contained within your folder, and you get given a random hand of chips every time the gauge fills. Now, I do like how customizable your chip folder is. However, the system feels nearly directly lifted out of Battle Network 1 or 2. My biggest issue is that, as your basic buster shot is pretty much useless, you have to rely heavily on the battle chips, and you can't always guarantee you'll get a good set. So if your custom gauge fills up and you get a bunch of heal chips when all you want is something to hit a boss decently hard with, or vice versa, then that sucks. I guess you're going to have to wait about a minute in real time for that gauge to fill back up. Have fun, and good luck. I know this is based on the Battle Network RPGs, but shoving a mechanic from an RPG into a traditional platformer without tweaking it at all is going to lead to a bit of messiness at best, and absolute boredom at worst. And most frustrating of all here is that there was a Battle Network platformer that did this right. Battle Network WS had a really nice interpretation of the chip system, and even had a few chips that acted as semi-permanent upgrades. In my previous look at that game, I mentioned that the chips there came off as a more flexible version of the old special weapon system. On top of that, your buster shots, while not super powerful, were decent enough on their own for dispatching basic enemies too. so the chip system there served to enhance your already decent abilities instead of trying to make up for Mega Man feeling like his absolute weakest. Not to mention that BNWS had Battle Network 2's style change system, which gave megaman.exe certain elemental buffs and debuffs depending on which form you chose, along with new elemental buster shots and really rad form-based designs. BNNT here just has the armor system. There are 4 of these, and yeah, like the styles, that grant certain elemental attributes, but your Mega Buster and design don't change at all. And like, I know this game is set between Battle Network 1 and 2, but come on, BNWS had already been out for a few months at this point. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if the main devs here never played a Mega Man platformer before. If that's the case, I wonder, did they just try to sloppily copy the work of the BNWS team? Worst of all is the boss balancing. Now, when designing a game, you typically want a difficulty curve that looks like this, an incline up to the end, maybe with a bulge somewhere to account for some difficult bonus stuff. So Network Transmission flips this. Of all the Mega Man games I've ever played, this one has the most brutal beginning. I spent 45 minutes trying to take on the first boss, Fireman.exe. He hits like a truck. Seriously, 3 hits and you're dead for the first boss. And he's not the only one that feels a little ridiculous. Following boss is Gutsman.exe, who also hits like a tank. Brightman doesn't hit as hard but can make himself invincible at points, and that's just a pain in the ass. Weirdly enough, at this point the game opens up a little and you get a little bit of stage choice, and the bosses get a little less BS. Needleman, Iceman, Colorman, and Electman aren't too bad. Gravity Man looks like someone turned a literal plant into a net Navi, so I guess that's cool. And the following Starman isn't too difficult to beat either. Even Zero feels a good bit less BS in the first 2 bosses. Mega Man just feels a bit more sluggish here than BNWS or any of the classic games. At no point did I feel like I could quickly dodge like I could in some of those other titles, plus your invincibility frames go away way too quickly. That sometimes means you can be hit multiple times by the same boss attacks. That's garbage. Oh, and Quick Man sucked too. Not just the boss, but also his stage. It's filled with those insta-kill lasers from Mega Man 2. And he himself was very, very annoyingly quick. At least I kind of expected it, with the name. Oh yeah, there's a weird thing with some of the stages as well. Overall, the platforming is fine, I guess. Nothing special in the whole. I don't know, some of these mini-bosses go on forever and really need a health bar. But sometimes stages feature gimmicks or level sections lifted straight out of NES Mega Man games. Just why? Like, look at this bit from Electman stage. And look at the start of Electman stage in Mega Man 1. Is this supposed to make me feel nostalgic or something? It just kind of makes me wish I was playing one of those better titles. And I wish I could say the story makes up for some of this, but it's really nothing to write home about. Though, what I was really pleasantly surprised by is that after defeating Zero, he actually gets a little bit of redemption. And then the true big bad is revealed. This guy. And there's a few more stages. Take your pick. Do you want to deal with an annoying ass ninja or a dead guy reincarnated as a Windows 7 widget? Maybe I was tired by this point, but Shadow Man and Snake Man also kicked my ass a ton. Not a lot of fun here either. Like, look, Mega Man games are supposed to be hard, but they hardly ever feel cheap. This one just feels like it's taking a bunch of cheap shots, What helped make the later sections of the game feel a little more tolerable was, by that point, I'd gotten a few extra lives, or backup chips as the game calls them. What I really like these compared to how extra lives work in most games is that, though they're hard to find, if you get one, it not only gives you an extra life for immediate use, but ups the number of extra lives you have every time you start a stage. I like that. It doesn't make the unbalanced difficulty any more forgivable though. The final stage is typical Mega Man fare, but still kind of dreadful. After beating a literal firewall, see what you did there, Erika, you have to go through a boss rush. I really wanted to quit here. Oddly though, the life virus, or I guess the life virus R as it now is called, I don't really know what the major difference is, it didn't give me nearly as much trouble as I expected. And as the credits began to roll, I couldn't help but think to myself, wow, I feel like roughly half my boss wins here came from pure dumb luck. I didn't feel satisfied at all. Now, if it sounds like I'm bitching a lot, it's because I am. The game really is not great. The stage designs are meh. The bosses range from downright unfair to uninspired. Graphics are, well, they're okay, I guess. But the upgrades, chips, and weapons were all better done in the WonderSwan game. And perhaps worst of all is Zero, the first Battle Network character to be based on a character from the X series, the character with the coolest design in the game, and one who is built up as potentially being the ultimate virus, or Navi or whatever. He's not only killed dead, but is never mentioned ever again in any other Battle Network game as far as I know. There's so much missed potential there, and honestly, if I could describe Network Transmission in 2 words, they'd also be missed potential. And if I could add 3 more words to that, they'd be Bio Wonderswan. I'm going to hype this line of handhelds until the day I die. There is one part of network transmission that does stand out for the better though. While this game is perhaps only surpassed by megaman.exe in terms of awfulness, the soundtrack is seriously good. Give it a listen. Every single track in the OST is a banger. A lot of it was done by Shinji Hosoe, a legendary video game composer who's worked on titles from Ridge Racer to Xenosaga to even contributing tracks to the Beatmania series. His tracks here are catchy, pumping, and overall just really damn good. I know I've been playing them in the background throughout most of this video, but here's some excerpts of some of my favorites. That's it for this video on a Mega Man Battle Network game I honestly didn't care for. If you feel the same way or feel differently, feel free to let me know your thoughts in the comments below. We're talking about video games here after all. It's okay to disagree on what we find to be good and bad. That said, if you enjoyed this video, definitely subscribe, and if you really enjoyed it, maybe become a channel member or back me on Patreon for as low as $1 a month. Join these folks here and get some access to some exclusive content as well. Also, accompanying this over on Patreon today are my thoughts on the upcoming Mega Man Battle Network Legacy Collection. It just felt right to do now, especially after a really nice convo we had about it in the Discord server. So with that, thank you very much for watching, stay classy, and I'll see you next time.